Hi, welcome to Comic Talk. I'm Joshua.
And Kia Furniture is a pain in the ass.
It is. Flat pack. This is our monthly review. We're going to do one of these this month. However, it was like last month, June?
Yeah.
Yes, for June, which has now been a few weeks, but you get it, so stop bitching. Here it is. Okay, so I was gone most of June, but I did read everything that you and Christina read.
We did.
So now we're going to kind of hash back through it. We read somewhere in the mid-20s in titles, and at this point we've got such a great list of comics that the 3 and 3 just isn't working, right? So
it's too much good shit.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about 4 each this time, but it also means we're going to have to come a little more rapid fire at you with them, just so it's not like an hour, which I guess you probably wouldn't mind, but, you know, that's a long time to do one of these, and it gets hot in the void, so...
Yeah, the void is super hot.
Yeah, so let's just start talking about them. Is that cool?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, let's just do one.
All right, Jupiter's Legacy Volume 2, Issue 1 by Mark Millar and Frank Quitely. So, you weren't here for the discussion on this, so why don't you start off with your general impressions, so they can get them for the first time ever right here on Comic Talk.
Very cool. It's going to be most of these, though, so it's going to wear off pretty quick. I really liked this one. I felt like they did a good job of making this feel a little more classic superhero-y in the way that they did with Legacy last time as well. So Circle, when we read Circle, it's a little bit more
indie feeling,
character drama-esque, but this is consistently a little bit more of a focused superhero narrative. It's a nice change back to this style.
There are a lot of little things, though, that I think are reminiscent of Circle, and I think on the show we talked about just the characterizations of the villains, like the very brief ones that we get of like the villains that they're rounding up, and how we get a very distinct picture of who these people are just by their surroundings and, you know, what little they say, if they say anything at all. And like the backstory on how he got his power rod, you know, and Skyfox just came in and asked for his flashlight and some tinfoil, and then bam, he's got, you know, one of the most powerful objects in the fucking universe because comic books. Yeah. So very good overall. I would say it's a great example of like the superhero genre.
And I really like this fine line that they sort of ride with the explanations of characters and how they work. Like you said, because comic books is really an overriding factor here. It's very much in your face, and it's cool to take that mixture of, because comic books is the explanation of the thing. Like, I loved the power rod.
Yeah.
He just makes it out of a flashlight and some tinfoil and some wire, and there you go, now you have a magical item, right? But why? Because comic books, because he's Skyfox, and that's what he does. Or you have the jumps and rides the electron through the cell phone, and you know, it's like just goofy shit, but done with a straight face and just a little bit of a wink.
Yeah.
You know, but it's not, they're not hanging their hat on it in like a Whedon-esque kind of way where it's like, haha, that's funny because it's stupid. It's like you just have to accept that it's dumb, and then, okay, well, if it was dumb and you lived in that world, now what?
Yeah.
Right? So, and I think that really sums up the book. It's like, okay, there's a lot of dumb things that you have to accept, and then let's tell a real story.
For sure.
All right, so the first one I'm going to talk about here is I Hate Fairyland, Scotty Young and Jean-Francois Laban. Number 6, I'm going to keep butchering his name worse and worse every month until it's completely unrecognizable.
Start rare engine ladders and shit.
Franz Javon Milan. So this is the one where she's the queen and she fucking hates it.
Yeah. And they're always having to pull the car around because she's always like fucking shit up. Yeah, it's just basically, was it Metallica that came out with an album called Disaster Piece?
Yeah, I think so.
It's maybe like a appropriate adjective for this. It's a disaster piece.
I especially loved the art and coloring in this particular issue. He went gorier with some stuff, like chopping people in half with their guts out, holes in people's chests, and just in general, the color palette was even more varied, I think, than I've seen in the past with this series. But otherwise, all of the writing is still fresh and funny like it has been. It goes left when you expect it to go right, just like it always does. Just continuing to kick ass with this title.
Yeah, not to mention the creepy shit, like her having that like aviator scene where she's just like pissing in bottles and yeah. But the bottles are like sentient, so it gets like even darker.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
Next we have Cinder number 12 by Jeff Lemire and Dustin Nguyen. This one was the very interesting backstory on Tim 22. We got introduced to that character a few issues ago, and we thought he was a cool guy at first, and then we thought he was a total asshole, and then here we get some insight into like why he's a total asshole, and we start to feel for the little guy because he had a really tough upbringing. I don't want to see childhood because he's still a child, and he probably always will be, so I don't know if, Anyway. So this is one of those things that I really like in stories where they give everybody their sort of due diligence. You know, you don't have like an asshole that's just an asshole because he's an asshole. Like it's always like consequential things and, you know, cause and effect. And this is just a really great instance of that. Not to mention that Dustin Nguyen's artwork gets better every issue.
Well, and you know, this one's clever because not only does he use it to fill in information about Tim 22, but he uses this Tim 22 story to tell us a bunch of other things about the world that they live in.
Right.
By giving us a character that we're not connected to already, right? We have no real allegiance to this guy. We liked him and then we didn't like him, so it's sort of like whatever at this point. Like, whatever you do with this character is going to be okay because I've been on both sides of the fence.
Sure.
So by doing that, then we get to see a little bit more about what tension was like, what the world was like before the thing happened. And we get to see the thing happening from an outsider perspective of somebody who basically has roughly the same amount of information we have, right, at the time. Like, very little. Yeah,
it was a great exploration of the other side, you know, because Tim 21, you know, is being the nice robot that he is. He's been surrounded by, you know, some pretty caring people, whatnot. But, we get to see that's not always the case with people in the world, as it wouldn't be. I mean, some people are just bastards.
Yeah. And we still get this crazy watercolor on penciling.
Yeah.
Which is just fucking weird and cool. And like you said, it gets better every time.
Yeah, good shit.
So next, let's talk about Power Man and Iron Fist. Number whatever this is, 5.
5, yeah.
Walker, Flaviano, and Rausch.
So this is the one where they go on the radio show.
Right.
Yeah, because somebody saw him get in a fight, and then a whole bunch of people call in, and we get, you know, a whole bunch of alternate perspectives on the same event.
Yeah, like a Rashomon, like a modern Rashomon or something. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Maybe my favorite issue of this yet.
Yeah, it was really, really good. And that's kind of saying a lot, given that it's a bit of a throwaway issue. Like, we're not advancing any sort of storyline here whatsoever. Like, the guy, I don't remember the fucking guy's name that's trying to rob the hot dog stand or whatever, but
right, yeah, something with a couple of M's.
Yeah, Murderous Mahoney or something like that.
Manslaughter Marsdale.
Yeah,
there we go. Yeah,
that's pretty close.
Yeah, it was pretty good considering.
Yeah, I feel like that could be his name. Anyway, so yeah, I doubt he really comes back, or if he does, it's not going to be in a significant way. You know, I really doubt the majority of these characters come back in any way. But it was a really good, strong, fun story. You know, I mean, it was just an enjoyable read. It's a good, like, bridge issue from what we had before to probably what is going to be the status quo. It does a good job of moving us from one to the other. Sure. But mostly, man, it has all of the great characterizations that I've come to expect from this comic. But just everybody in here is on point this time. It's just... Yeah. But I guess it has been every time. There's something... I guess there's always something about the Rashomon thing that I always love. Yeah. Where let's tell the same story in multiple different ways. You know, so you get some insight into different aspects of people and culture and how they are reacting to this. So perception. Yeah, so we get to see kind of the villain perception, the public perception,
and then the heroes,
victim perception
themselves, the victim, like all these different ways of seeing the same thing, and how people remember things differently, but just the characters are so strong. Everybody's so funny, the way they interact. It's just great. I really love this. This is one of my favorite things, which is why it's here.
Right. Even down to stupid little details like how he didn't think to put seatbelts in the fucking Powermobile before. Yeah, and that's really like the cause of like this whole commotion. It's just the fact that he made a flying car with no fucking seatbelts.
Right.
And it just happened into this guy who happened to be being an asshole at a time, and
Right. Well, and I also love that they're willing to do this thing with like a very down-to-earth characters. Luke Cage is like street level kind of guy, right? And we have like the radio guy that's like Sway, like everybody knows like Sway with the hair, right? Like that guy. So we have these very like urban, down-to-earth kind of people, but then we have a flying fucking car too. Like I really like the mixture. It's a lot of fun.
For sure. Daredevil number 8 by Sol Suzuka and Milla. So we've been kind of like, I guess, warm on this series since it came out. I mean, we always keep coming back to, well, it's no Wade, but, it's cool. And the first story arc was like, okay, and it's been getting better since then. This issue, like, really, really impressed me, though. This is the one where he enters a poker tournament as a blind man,
right?
To try to get information and whatnot. And really, it comes back to that whole standard sort of sequence of events, but just because of who's in it, that's the interesting part about it. Like, we've seen the thing where the good guy has to enter a poker game full of bad guys like a million fucking times, like in a million different settings, like not just only in superheroes, but like spies and noir and fucking everything, but the fact that he is a blind man,
doing it with Daredevil is unique and clever.
Just because he's him, and
Right, and I think this does my favorite thing that you can do with Daredevil, which is give him a relatively simple problem that's hard to solve because he's blind. Right. Like, he can't see his own cards, and it's such a simple premise. Like, how does a blind guy like him play cards? And they use like a whole issue to figure that out, right? Yeah.
Then it ends up being his sort of a strong point when he gets to the top poker player guy, which was the thing all along, because he can read minds, but if you don't know what fucking cards are in your hand, then that's pointless.
Right, it doesn't do you any good. Right.
Yeah, we talked about the actualization maybe of like their psychological battle, how it turns into this metaphorical like boxing match / sword fight, whatever, and how normally that would be really cheesy, but because of the fact that they were like, this isn't actually happening, this is just whatever, like that somehow makes it acceptable.
Right. They acknowledge the ridiculousness of it and like just admit it.
Right.
They say this is stupid, but it's just the way to show it, so deal with it. Like,
Not to mention the surprise entry at the very end. I'm still excited to see where that goes.
I mean, I know, me too. Yeah, I'm stoked to see the next issue now, which I have not said
about this
yet. There was a couple back where I said, I'm hoping the next issue makes this good. Right?
Which is completely different.
Which is not the same thing. This, I'm like just legitimately stoked to see what happens next now. All right, next for me, this is way different in tone from pretty much everything we've talked about. Maybe Descender's close, but this is Sheriff of Babylon number 7, King and Gerard's.
Yeah.
So this is the really
fucking brutal,
heavy episode where Nasir... I always call these episodes. I think that tells you something about a comic when you call it an episode. To me, it does. It's
a Freudian kind of thing. Like, you feel like it's...
Yeah, like I read it and saw it in my mind enough that it became an episode, not an issue of something I was looking at. But yeah, Nasir just gets fucking brutalized, and we have some really powerful conversations that are happening over the top of it, and just a lot of brutal shit goes down in a lot of different ways.
It's just uncomfortable in a lot of ways, like when he's like naked on the floor and shit, and it just feels like uncomfortable to read, and you don't get a lot of that, like, in the comic medium. Like, there's not a lot of shit that makes you, like, uncomfortable to read.
Right.
Unless you have, like, body issues and you're reading Lady Death or something like that. That would be...
Yeah. But, you know...
the only other way. But yeah, just the psychological games and stuff they're playing with him, like, trying to get information out of him, and, like, you know, do you think he's going to die at one point? You don't know if he thinks he's going to die at one point, because he doesn't, you know, say one way or another, but it's just fucking... just tense.
Yeah, it's tough.
Uncomfortable. Yeah.
Yeah. And this, you know, I think really great works tend to make you uncomfortable. You know, the stuff that's really going to stick to your bones when you're done with it is the stuff that made you a little bit uncomfortable when you read it.
Sure.
Or experienced it. And I think this is one of those things. Of all the Tom King stuff, as much as I love the Vision, per se, like, and Omega Man and Grayson to a lesser extent, and now maybe even Batman.
Sure.
I think in the long run, this is the one that I'm going to really remember reading because of the impact that it has, like, viscerally, right? It sticks to you, I feel like.
Yeah. There's some stuff like that in Vision, at least for me, you know.
Sure.
Like, this is fucking, like, I'm not okay with this.
Right.
You know, but this is more blunt about it. You know, I mean, it's still, like, tasteful and craftful and stuff like that, but
right, but,
you know, there's
being set in reality, I think, is what really takes this one and really twists the knife, you know.
Yeah, it's just dirty, you know, and you get reminded constantly that, like, you know, death and near death is not, like, a pretty thing at all, you know.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't sugarcoat it at all.
Yeah.
And artistically, it's the same thing. Like, the art is on point with this. It matches the tone perfectly. It reminds me of Sean Phillips a lot. Do you get that with it?
I could see that, maybe.
Especially in the way he lays out his panels. You know, not necessarily...
It's very classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really love Sheriff of Babylon.
All right, and last on the tops, we got Archie number 9.
Well, I got one more on the tops too, buddy.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do. I got this one right here.
Oh, okay. Well, second to last on the tops, we got Archie number 9. So this is the issue where Veronica's trying her best to, like, live in Archie world. And she just doesn't get it, but she's trying really hard. And I think that's the one thing that I really liked about this was that, you know, normally when we get the storyline of, you know, guy has a rich girlfriend or, you know, girl has a rich boyfriend and they try to experience each other's worlds, like, they run into this rift, and, you know, the rich one's usually, like, a total asshole about it, you know, and you feel bad for the little guy, and it's like, fuck it, whatever, he doesn't need her, she doesn't need him, whatever.
Right.
But in this, like, she's so sincere in her efforts and stuff that you really just feel for them both as, like, people, you know.
Yeah, agreed.
They each have their own difficulties and plight and stuff, and it's very human, you know.
Yeah, it's so easy to write Veronica as just a heartless, pompous, rich bitch, right? Like, that would be easy. That's what most people do. But Wade doesn't do that at all.
No.
Right? Like, she has the tendencies of a pompous, rich person because that's what she grew up in, but you get the feeling through this comic that she's, like, a good fucking person who really wants to be a good person and do the right thing and be helpful and not, like, impede on others, right?
Sure. She just has, like, a different, like, mindset, or, you know, the things that she's used to are just so different that, you know, she comes off that way sometimes, but she's not, like, actually that person. It's just, you know, it's what she knows, and we all try to, you know, actualize things in our world to the extent that they're actualized in our brain. And
right. I mean, what this comes down to is this is Mark Waid, you know, the guy who has written so many incredible works over the years, you know, even just recently. Fucking Daredevil was amazing, right? But he's done so many great things. He's such a good writer. And then let's have him write a teenage love triangle, right? I mean, on the surface, it looks like something you'd see on, you know, the CW or something like that. It seems like it would just be worthless to somebody like me or you. Like, if you were to just look at it on the shelf, Archie looks dumb. It's about a guy and a couple girls that like him.
Sure.
But somehow he turns it into this really captivating and funny and heartfelt romp. It's great.
It's like the best sitcom, like, I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's really fantastic.
Yeah, and on that note, it's really funny. Like, this opening sequence where, they're putting up all the security measures to keep Archie out.
Yeah.
I still laugh when I think about it. Like the beekeepers and then the shark and then the sniper tower.
Yeah, and he's not afraid to go like way over the top with things.
Yeah.
Right? Like she brings in a 160-inch 4K TV into his house. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it goes way over the top, but somehow the world is so alive and cartoony vibrant that you buy it. Or at least I do. I'm like, in Archie world, that's how life works. But yet there's still real people somehow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they still feel genuine even though they're like it's this ridiculous over-exaggerated world. It's really masterful.
It's maybe like a muted Family Guy in that aspect. You know, like, oh, Peter just crashed a plane into Cleveland's house. It's like, okay, well, whatever. But it's pulled back from that. But still maybe that same sense of like hyperbole just for effect.
Right.
Which is good.
Yeah,
it's good effect.
Definitely. Good stuff.
Yes.
And Veronica Fish is awesome as always.
Always.
Fantastic characterization work. Last one I have is 4 Kids Walk Into a Bank, number 2. This is Black Mask Studios, the only thing we've read from Black Mask. And I love it.
Yeah.
Just straight away. These characters are just awesome and, again, very genuine. Very quickly in the first issue, I felt like I knew these characters.
Yeah.
Like they're just written so cleanly. Like there's a little bit of muddle, just enough to make them feel real, but they're very stereotyped in a lot of ways, right? But then we take these stereotypes and put them into a very kind of dirty, nuanced world with very not clean stuff happening, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
It's a very nuanced world, but with very stereotypical kids, and it makes for this really beautiful mix, I think.
And on top of that, I love how, you feel like everybody's voice is the one that would be, like, coming from that character, you know? Like, in the scene where she's got, like, the angel and the devil on her shoulder, and, one of the solutions is, just stab them in the junk. Like, that's something that would make sense to, like, a 12-year-old girl,
right,
Like,
right.
that's something that they would think of. It's just consistently like that throughout, You never feel like it's, like an old-ass or, like, our age even writer, like, trying to put his words into their mouths. It's like, no, like, if... these kids, that's the type of shit that they would say. That's the type of shit that I would have thought, when I was their age. Right,
yeah. All their solutions to these very complicated real-world problems are very simple, like childlike solutions to things, right? You want to know more about something, you just skip school and break in. And you just go look, right? And, look, a sandwich, I'm hungry, I'll eat it.
Yeah. And we need to go, like, find, okay, we got their address, we got to go there. Okay, well, what now? I don't know. This is as far as I planned. We just got to go check it out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So there's just this, like, simple exuberance to it. But also artistically, I really love this. First of all, the onomatopoeias, I think, sort of sum up the way I feel like the artist looks at this series, like if somebody throws something at somebody, like the sound that it makes is the thing that's being thrown.
Yeah.
Things like that. Like, it's just this awkward, like not trying to seem realistic so much as impress upon you that you're really reading it as a comic, I suppose, if that makes sense. It's very quintessentially comic booky in a way that keeps it from being done in another medium, which I think is a really strong point for it. Because why make a comic book if you're not going to use the fact that it's a comic book to your advantage?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think artists like often fall into that trap of like trying to take something and like make it into something it's not. Like fucking you hear people like trying to work a banjo into their metal band and whatnot. It's like, you're just being fucking stupid, dude.
Right.
Like, there's a reason why it's not done. It's because it's fucking awful. Like, the more you try to make it into that other thing, the less, you're maintaining the good qualities about what it was in the first place. You just play to the strengths. And that's a great example of this.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, a lot of what we see in the art actually harkens back to even like comic strips.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes I'll see something and feel like, Christ, that's practically like Family Circus.
Yeah.
right? Like bloop, like a circle just imposed onto it with their head out of it and like an explanation or there's a lot of these things that you only see in comic books that are just strewn throughout that show a real love for the medium that makes it that much more fun to read as somebody who reads a lot of fucking comics, right?
Sure.
I think the more comic books you read, the more you'll like this.
That's fair. All right, on to the bottoms. The shit list.
This has been long, so let's talk about these. We have 3 that we both 100% agreed on.
Yeah.
Right? Normally, just as like an inside baseball, we like string everything out all over the floor, right? And we lord over it and we pick out our stuff. And we usually go back and forth. I'll talk about this one. You'll talk right.
Sure, yeah. We both really like this one, but you can talk about it because
right.
X, Y, and Z.
This one was terrible. I didn't think it was bad. You go ahead and do it. And you take this one, right? This one we were both like reaching for the same books and like prying them from each other. Like no, I want to say that this one's bad, right? So the 3, let's just name all 3 of these right here. Let's shame them. Black Panther number 3, which God is such a bummer. Bloodshot number 14, again kind of a bummer.
Shame.
And The Flash number 1, also a bummer. Like these are all bummers that they are not doing it for us.
Yeah.
So let's start off. Let's go in reverse order.
You start with Flash?
Let's start with The Flash, DC Universe Rebirth, The Flash number 1. And first of all, can we mention the fact that we read most of the DC Rebirth stuff last month and none of them got mentioned except for this at the bottom? Is that?
Yeah, that's true. Well, we didn't read Green Arrow and we didn't read Wonder Woman.
That's true. We're going to do Wonder Woman in trade because I feel like, we both discussed this, we feel like it's going to be a better format.
Sure. Because
it's one of those Greg Rucka things where he goes back and forth between 2 different timelines. Going to be confusing as shit reading that, so we're waiting for trade.
Sure. But yeah, this one, I mean, and I like The Flash, I mean, like, when I play like a DC video game, I'm automatically going to pick The Flash because he's like fucking cool, I like him. But there's just so many shit comics with him in them, and it just fucking pisses me. Like, the actual list of like Flash comics that I feel like are good gets narrower like every fucking day, to where now we're basically down to I liked a couple trades out of the New 52 and then the Wade run.
Right.
And that's like fucking it, and this just feels like dude's trying to like cop the Jeff Johns style of Flash shit, and it's bad.
I don't even know what the plan really is here. This feels like, if anything, the comic book version of the TV show.
Yeah.
And the TV show is mediocre, in my opinion. For like a major network superhero show, I guess it's okay. But
given the fact that it's on the CW, like, it's fine. But if it was on like FX, I think people would be throwing a fucking fit.
Right? Can you imagine if they put this on like fucking Netflix or HBO?
Right.
Or the show, like, it'd be like, fuck that. This is
I can watch Daredevil, or I can watch this Flash teen drama bullshit.
So in a way, this felt as pandering as that feels to me. I think pandering is the number 1 word, right?
It's super on the nose, and god damn it. I don't know how many times, I feel like I've heard the Flash origin story like no less than 6 times a week for like a while now.
Yeah.
And then we get this, Barry and Iris are going to end up together, I promise. And Barry's a scientist, and Wally's going to be important. And
you know what's funny
shut the fuck up. Just tell a good fucking story instead of like dropping all these like fucking clues about stuff that's you say is going to be amazing, but it's probably not going to be because you're a shit fucking writer.
Yeah. And the funny thing is the stuff in here, you could tell this in a page.
Yeah.
Like they just sort of sputter around and do really basic first ever Flash comic kind of stuff. Like,
his detective work is like laughable.
Right. It's just not interesting. Nothing really happens that engages me. There's nothing about this. After I read it, I don't feel like I've improved as a reader in any way. I don't feel like I've learned more about the character. I don't feel like I've learned more about this writer's voice. I don't feel like I've learned anything about how the artist draws.
I thought the art was good.
It's okay. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It's just okay, in my opinion. The coloring is kind of cool, but then in other spots, it's really bland. Like,
yeah, I think that's kind of the point, though, is like, you know, there's like Flash World, which is like full of lightning and streaks and whatnot, and then there's like regular world, which is, you know, very boring and plain and stuff. So, I mean, I can understand this sort of dichotomy of styles, and I liked it, but I can see where somebody wouldn't.
yeah, and I don't feel like there's any value in this. I'll tell you what, I was watching one of Sleepy Reader's videos the other day, and he was talking about Green Arrow Rebirth, #1, that a lot of people are liking. That you didn't read, I read it. And he was saying that he didn't grow from reading it. He didn't feel like the person who was writing it had anything to say. And I feel the exact same way about this. I don't feel like Williamson has any reason to write this comic. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like he could just write any comic and have the same feeling as he has writing this. I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling this guy giving a shit about this character or story. It feels like he's just doing a job.
Yeah.
Which is consistently a problem that I have with DC. And some of the Marvel stuff that we don't read as well. It just feels like a dude doing a job, and this is another one.
Yeah. So it sucks. Don't read it.
Yeah. So since we bagged on a DC, let's go over to Black Panther #3. This is Ta-Nehisi Coates and Starfleas and someone else. Martin.
This one, on the other side, it feels like he's trying very hard. But I think it's just one of those things where he's too, like, in his own head to realize that he's just kind of putting out, like, some confusing shit that nobody's really... I mean, there's nothing... I don't feel attached to any of the 17 fucking storylines that are going on at the same time.
Well, man, every time I read this, I feel like it's on the verge of being really good. I feel Ta-Nehisi Coates in here. I feel like he gives a shit.
Yeah.
Right? As I'm reading it, I really feel like this dude really cares about writing a good comic.
And I feel like he has a voice, which is awesome for, like, a new...
Yeah. I just feel like he's not very good at writing comics yet. Right. Just straight up.
Yeah.
Like, his understanding of the language of comic books and the narrative flow of writing a comic is just garbage. Like, he just doesn't understand how to properly write a comic book. I read, and I'm like, I read the first page, I'm like, oh, this is good. I read the second, it's better. Read the third, it's better. I'm like, oh, this is getting good. Next page, go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I was just getting into what you were talking about.
Right.
You were just starting to sell me on this particular aspect. And now we're moving on, and I got to start over from fucking scratch.
Yeah. I think me and Christina were talking about how, you know, it's fine to have, like, a lot of storylines going on at once, but you have to have an issue that's, like, 70% here, and then, you know, 10-10-10, or, you know, like, 50% here, and then, like, but this is consistently, like, 10 here, 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 10 here.
Right. It's a couple pages each.
Right.
It's like these little tiny vignette stories that are then spread out over multiple issues. It's fucking impossible to follow.
Yeah.
And you just can't get into it.
I want to get into it.
Me too. I love all of the elements. I love how he writes. I consistently, like I say, I start getting into the story, and then he just cuts and moves to something else. It's like the original Spider-Man films, the Sam Raimi.
Yeah.
Like, it just cuts every fucking, like, 15 seconds to something else through the whole fucking thing. And it's the same with this. Like, I just can't get into it because it doesn't give me anything to sink my teeth into.
Right.
I still have hope. I'm kind of on the fence with, like, even keeping this. Like, I could totally drop it for now and be super happy about it. But I almost guarantee I'm going to go pick it up and trade and try to read it as a cohesive whole and hope that it comes together.
Sure. I'm kind of at the point where it's like I have more hope for the next trade. You know, I think after he gets through the storyline, like, maybe he'll, like, learn some stuff, but maybe he's, like, into it to a point now where he can't really, like, make the drastic changes that are necessary to make it into a good, readable comic. So. Yeah.
Well, all in all, it's so close to being really great. But right now, it's just really bad.
Yeah.
It's just needs a little couple things and flip over to the other side. But as it is, it's almost unreadable, in my opinion. Oh, in The Flash, we didn't actually talk about whether or not
Oh, it's gone.
It's gone.
Yeah.
I'm totally with you. It's gone. It's worthless. It's not worth our time.
No, it's not worth $2.99.
No, it's not. That's sad, right?
Right.
20 pages, $2.99. You can't sell us on that. Like, and it's the fucking Flash. I mean, you're already a step ahead.
Sure. Oh
yeah.
The fastest
he's
man
super
alive.
fast, right? Bloodshot Reborn, number 14, was our last bottom of the month. This is Lemire, Soyan, and Baron.
So why did you put this on the bottom? I'm curious about that.
It's just, who gives a shit?
Yeah. Basically.
You know, I mean, the art's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's not
Art's
bad
always been
art,
cool.
you know, it's pretty good, but
Yeah.
it's just cheesy garbage, really, like
Yeah.
writing-wise. It's like, let's make a Bloodshot from every era and put them on an island together. Like,
Yeah.
I don't fucking care about that.
Yeah, it's like you just watch like the Hunger Games or something like that, and it's like, oh, maybe I can do like something like that.
Which he's been doing for a while.
Yeah, he's been,
right. There's
yeah.
Mad Max. Yeah, I don't know. It's just
Yeah, I'm just putting out on the whole island, fucking building the Bloodshot family. I don't care about anything that's happening basically, and it feels like this big ploy to get an interesting plot happening and just ride that instead of really taking the time to develop the characters, which like I'm usually not into anyway, but it feels like kind of a poor attempt at that even.
Yeah, and it's partially like, for me, Bloodshot, written by Lemire, it seems like the perfect opportunity to do a character drama, like an exploration of like a gritty, street level kind of thing.
Just towards the beginning, he was doing a pretty good job of that.
Right.
Yeah.
I loved where it started originally. First few issues when, he's just a dude in a hotel room and he's got some fucking simple problems that he has to deal with. Mm-hmm. This just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense for Lemire to do it like this. It doesn't make sense for Bloodshot to be like this. It's just...
It hasn't made sense really since the last storyline, like we go and he's in like the fucking future time, like all this sudden, and then there's some Mad Max shit happening, and then Jack shows up, and then some weird shit happens with him, and then he ends up on this fucking island, and then there's a whole bunch of Bloodshots from wherever, and then you get this super predictable thing where this Iron Maiden who's been slaying them all is probably just magic, and he's gonna have to kill all the dudes in the office and save her, and it's like, I know exactly where everything's going, and it's not interesting or new.
Yeah, and it just, it feels like exactly why Valiant failed the first time. Just extreme, just big extreme explosion fest for no real rhyme or reason. There's just no point. I don't feel like I'm growing in any way reading this. I don't feel like I've learned anything about anybody involved in the creative process or any metacontextual stuff, interesting narrative. It's just, let's put a bunch of, super soldiers on an island and have them shoot at a lady thing.
Yeah. And it's a bummer because, we had a Lemire title on top, and we have several times, like, he's a good fucking writer. I don't know what he's doing with this. I don't know.
Whatever. Are we going to keep doing Bloodshot?
I don't care.
I don't either. I think that's probably a good sign to drop it.
Yeah. There's some good shit coming out pretty soon that I would much rather have on there.
Agreed. Agreed. What are some of those things?
Well, Velvet's about to go into the second big story arc. I've been awaiting issue number 15 like for fucking ever. Ed Brubaker, you son of a bitch. You have delayed this shit like a fucking month, and I need it. Once that kicks off again, that'll be really good. Southern Bastards is about to come back again. That Jason Aaron, that's super good. I can't remember the name of the other Brubaker title that he's been like teasing the shit out of, but that looks really good. Cool. Is there anything that you're thinking about?
Yeah, not too long from now we have Blue Beetle.
Oh yeah, Blue Beetle.
And Doom Patrol. As well as a few of the other Young Animal things that we'll have to take a look at as more information comes out on them, because that's all coming up in the next couple months.
Sure.
So we might find ourselves having to do some more pruning. We've dropped 3 and technically 4 really, because this is bi-weekly. So that gives us some room, but we might have to prune a little bit more. Yeah. So
I could see dropping a Superman title, one of the two.
Yeah, maybe action. I'm liking Superman a little more, but you're liking action a little more, aren't you? So we might have to duke it out on that one.
Sure.
And also the stuff in the last episode or 2 obviously was July stuff. So we'll come back and kind of
talk about that.
Yeah, because most of this Rebirth stuff is just getting going, so I think next month we'll take a serious look at Rebirth stuff, because we've got a little chunk of things, and
Sure.
we'll see how that's doing.
All right. It's On the Void. Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, YouTube, podcasts. Finish your milk before we leave the table.
All of that.